One of the worst things you could ever do to yourself is wait for somebody to be ready for you. Many of you are in situations where you're waiting for somebody to finally choose you. You're waiting for somebody to finally change. You're waiting for somebody to finally come around and fulfill the hope that you've been holding on to for so long. Maybe people have given you false promises. Maybe people have told you things. Maybe people have showed you potential. Maybe you made up your own potential that you saw within a person and you're holding on to who they once were or who you think they can become. And it's creating this sense of you thinking that things will eventually work out. You're waiting around and waiting for this change that's never guaranteed to come. And I've been there before where I've waited for somebody to finally choose me. I made up in my mind, or I had this idea in my mind where I was like, oh, they just need to do this. We just need to have this conversation. I just need to convince them of this. I just didn't need to do more of that. And it's like, I put my life on pause for 1 to 2 years waiting for somebody to finally choose me, waiting for somebody to finally make changes that were never guaranteed to happen, waiting for somebody to finally step into the potential I saw within them, and maybe I even saw for us. And so what I've realized is that when you put your life on pause for so long for somebody, not only are you putting yourself through suffering, but you're also constantly in this state of anxiety and hope. You're checking messages, you're waiting for somebody to change. It's a bunch of conversations that lead to nowhere. It's a bunch of false promises that you're waiting to be fulfilled because you hold on to people's words more than you do their actions. I feel like in waiting for people to be ready for you or in waiting for people to choose you, I feel like oftentimes we already have the answer. We're just in denial. People have shown us who they are. People have shown us how they feel about us. People have shown us, how they feel towards the relationship or how they feel towards a friendship or whatever. And I feel like in ignoring that is ignorant, and you set yourself up to go through pain a lot longer than you really need to be going through. And I know for myself, I've missed out on a lot in life. I remember I was holding on to a specific person for a long time because I didn't care to rebuild anything new. I had gotten so familiar with that situation and the comfort that I found in it, the connection I had in it, how they knew me, how I knew them. I didn't care to let that go. I didn't care to have to find new friends. I didn't care to have to rebuild that type of connection with someone new, mainly because I didn't even know how I got it in the first place. And so it put me in a position where I was like, I was so unwilling to let go because had this fear of moving forward. Essentially, I had this fear of what life looked like without a specific person, and not even just the fear of what it looked like, but actually having to go out and build it for myself. I didn't want to have to put in that energy. I didn't want to have to put in that effort. I didn't want to have to essentially have to open myself back up when I had become so closed off already, because I had invested all of who I was, not all of who I was, but I had made a place my home. I had made a place essentially where I brought everything to. And the moment I lost that, I didn't want to pack my bags up and have to find essentially another home or essentially other places to where I again open myself up to, and I allowed them into my life. And real quick, if you find yourself in a season of your life where you're struggling to let go of hope and struggling to be willing to move forward and start rebuilding your life and moving forward without certain people who have always seemingly been in it, then be sure to check out my one-on-one coaching down below in the description and apply, because it might be something that's for you. But anyways, back to the video. Because for a long time, I was a very introverted person, like a extroverted introvert, where I know how to talk to people, but I didn't care to talk to people. I didn't care to build relationships because I was just introverted. I was like focused on what I had going on, whether that was YouTube, whether that was content creation, whether that was just my own personal goals. And so I didn't care to create that time and space and put in that effort and energy to build new relationships. And so when I was on the verge of losing what was familiar to me and the only real connection I had, it put me in a state where I waited. It put me in a state where I tried to force. It put me in a state where I was holding on to hope. It put me in a state where I was constantly in this state of suffering, constantly in this state of anxiety. And what I realized is that I was starting to miss out on the life that was waiting for me to live. At some point, I had to come around to the fact that, I have a life that I need to live, and I can't put it on pause waiting for somebody to make a decision or waiting for somebody to understand me or gain this certain perspective that's never guaranteed to happen, nor are they entitled to feel that way. And so until I started choosing myself, until I started making the decision to actually move forward, even if I was scared, even if it was uncomfortable, then I was never going to enjoy life again. I was never going to be at peace. I was always going to be in a state of waiting around for something that, again, was never guaranteed to come. And so I had to take the steps to start moving forward. I had to stop missing out on the opportunities, the people, the relationships that, wanted me to step into them. And I had to start finding and building something new, and really even building my own home within myself. I had to realize that I couldn't rely on a person. I couldn't rely on a place that, again, isn't always guaranteed to be there, which, proved to come to life, where people can leave your life at any point in time. Things can leave your life at any point in time. And so you never want to have to rely on people or places or things in order for yourself to be at peace. And so I had to learn also how to provide that space for myself. And that's still honestly something I'm working on, where it's like, you don't need other people. You don't need anybody in order to fulfill you in any certain way, or, rely on them to make you feel some type of way. But you learn how to give that feeling to yourself, or be at peace even if you don't have that feeling. And, when I finally made that decision to kind of start moving forward in life and letting go of that person, letting go of that hope, things started coming to me so much easier. I eventually found people who were good for me. I eventually found new opportunities for my life that, had my focus been elsewhere or still in that person in that situation, then I probably would have missed out on those opportunities because my focus wasn't aligned. And, where I was putting my energy to wouldn't have been aligned. And so it's like, in having finally starting to let go of that situation and letting go of all hope and stuff like that, like being at peace with it being where it is and not trying to make it anything more. God has worked in ways to where I've gotten a lot out of it, to where, him removing me from that situation, him essentially working through my mindset to finally see it as, you need to let go of this, and this isn't for you in this season. I need you to just trust that where I'm taking you is much better than what you're trying to hold on to. And he started to just reveal. And it's such a blessing to just have that trust in God, knowing like he gonna take care of you regardless. Like, and as long as you have that faith in him, and not having that mindset of thinking that what's best for you, and that all things, and that which direction you need to be going, and the people who are best for you, and the people who need to be in your life, then it's like things just work out on their own. And you just got to be willing to go with the flow. You got to be willing to adapt to however things shift in your life, because if you get too attached, then you start forcing. Then you start staying in places that are no longer for you. Then you start having people in your life who do nothing but take from you. In the end, God might have been protecting me in ways in which I couldn't even see. And so it's like, until I put that trust in him, until I started having that faith to move forward in the way that he was having me move forward, then things started to unveil themselves, and see how all of this was necessary, and how everything is really just working out and falling into place. But I want many of y'all to understand, like, people are going to say a lot. People are going to show a lot of potential. People are going to give you what you want, or show up in a way temporarily just to keep you around. But I want you to just understand that sometimes you have to make a difficult decision. Sometimes you have to step into fear, even though it's uncomfortable. Sometimes you have to make the decision that's best for you, even though it doesn't feel like it's what's best for you. Even though it makes you feel like you're letting go of home. Even though it makes you feel like you're making yourself vulnerable in a way to where, you don't know how you're going to move forward, even though you're having to let go of what might be familiar, and, a person who's been in your life for an extended period of time, and you don't even know what life looks like without them. I understand the decision. I understand how scary it is. I understand how uncomfortable it can be. But sometimes you have to just look at it and say, is this the best decision for me? And if you're a person of faith, do I trust in God enough to know that the promises in which he's made to me, as far as keeping me safe, as far as, watching over me, do I actually trust him enough to follow his lead, essentially? Do I trust myself enough to go with the flow and know that I will be okay? In 1 Corinthians 10:13, it talks about how, God will never put us in situations that we're not capable of getting through, that we don't have the necessary tools, assets, skills, strength to be able to get through, to be able to handle, to be able to overcome. And so, it's like, nothing in life will ever be too big for us to truly be able to go through, or truly be able to withstand it, I guess. But on a non-spiritual way of looking at things, I think you also have to look at hope and say, why do I hope for this situation? What is it about this person? What is it about the situation? What is it about the feeling they're able to bring to me that makes me want to hold on to it? Because I feel like oftentimes it's one thing to have to let go, and then it's another thing to be attached. It's another thing to have a hard time letting go and be going through the regular struggles of grief and just letting go of a person. Then it's another thing to be attached to where you feel like you can't move forward in life without them, or you feel like you can't move forward in life without something that they bring to you. And I feel like for a long time that was a question I had to ask myself of, what is it about this situation that makes me hold on to hope to it? Because I've dealt with rejection before. I've dealt with relationships before. I've dealt with, losing people. But there's certain situations where it's just different, because you notice you're holding on longer than usual, or you're holding on to hope a lot more, and your heart and your feelings are just still invested into it. And so it's just taking the time to truly ask yourself, what is it about this person? Is it their validation? Is it the way they make you feel in a way? What is it that they bring to your life that you feel like you can't be without, essentially, that keeps you emotionally attached to it? And I feel like when you finally figure that out, then the question begins, how can I learn to give that to myself? How can I build new relationships that are able to bring those things to me? How can I, again, move forward in life where I don't need that feeling, or I don't need that validation, or I don't need that person in order to be at peace, or in order to be happy? But hope is one of those things where it's like, it's not there for a reason. And sometimes our pain, sometimes our emotions are really just trying to point us towards the places within ourselves where we're broken, where we need help, where we need more security. And I feel like a lot of us are unwilling to face that pain, or face that reality, or ask that question, because we're, again, so focused on holding on to the hope that we never question why it's actually there. We're so focused on, feeling the pain, or, trying to avoid the pain, that we're not even asking, why would that be painful to us? I really want you to understand is, like, the longer you hold on, the harder it will always be for you to let go. I feel like the longer you hold on to that hope, the longer you wait around for that change, and wait around for a person to be ready for you, waiting around for a person to choose you, the harder it will be to let go when you finally have to let go. Because sometimes situations just end on their own, where it's like, okay, I have to let this go. Or when you finally just make that decision to respect yourself and start moving forward and let go of that hope, then again, it's almost like you're holding on so much that the higher you go, because the more you're invested. And when you finally let go, it's just a longer way down. And so I hope that gives you some clarity. And I hope that gives you a spark to make a decision that you probably know you already need to be making. But I love and appreciate you guys as always. Hopefully you learned a thing or two. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and turn on post notifications. I'm gonna catch you guys in the next video. Peace.